بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الكريم وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد اللهم لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما اللهم يا معلم إبراهيم علمنا ويا مفهم سليمان فهمنا ثم أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Welcome everyone to our first class in Fiqh 101, the book of Tahara or Purification, and I'm your instructor Abu Awza'i Abdul Salam. Inshallah ta'ala, in this course, which will be about 7 or maybe five different sessions, we will go over the masail pertaining to al-Tahara in the Hanbali madhab. As we mentioned a couple days ago that we're going to be studying the masail found in the Hanbali madhab. With that being said, we're not going to tolerate any other differences of opinion, nor are we going to discuss back and forth with the students. Rather, we're going to present the material as it is understood in the madhab. And then if there's some issues that are not close to the Kitab wa Sunnah, we're going to provide commentary by Ibn Uthaymeen rahimahullah ta'ala and also Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah. The reason for that is because as Muslims, we are commanded to follow al-Kitab wa Sunnah, the Quran and the Sunnah, the authentic Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So whatever goes against those two sources, we have to throw it away or not follow, just like the Imams of the past did themselves. However, with that being said, us being layman Muslims, especially most of us, we don't understand the Arabic language, we are not able to read the Quran and read the authentic hadith and derive rulings from those texts. Okay? So for that reason, many ulama of the past, they came and they wrote books, or they discussed issues, or they answered questions and derived these rulings for us. And in reality, this is a mercy from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that these ulama, they spent their entire lives in deriving these rulings for us to be able to follow. So this is one of the benefits of following a madhab, is that everything is already ready. It's already discussed and ready for you to understand, memorize, and implement. You don't have to, especially for a person who doesn't have the time, you don't have to go in the Quran and try to find the ayah and try to understand what is the tafsir of the ayah, what is the sabab nuzul, is this ayah nasikh, is this ayah mamsukh, mansukh, right? You don't have to do all those things. Those things have already been performed by the ulama of the past, okay, and they've been put in a madhab for you to follow. Okay, so someone asked as to why we chose to follow and teach the madhab of the Hanabila, and that is because being here in Saudi Arabia, this is the school of thought that we study in school. This is the school of thought that we study at the Haram. This is the school of thought that we study in general. So we are versed in this madhab. Also, some scholars have mentioned, this is what the ulama have said, that the Hanbali school of thought is considered to be, in a lot of the issues, closest to the Kitab wa Sunnah. Okay? And a lot of the issues that we'll go over, we'll find that there are many that are closest to the Kitab wa Sunnah. And of course, Allah knows best. Now, so today, inshallah ta'ala, we'd like to provide a quick introduction, which will be, and in this introduction, here are some of the issues that we'll be going over. All right, we'll be providing a definition to the word fiqh. What does fiqh mean linguistically? What does fiqh mean according to the scholars of fiqh? All right. Then after speaking about the definition, we'll learn about what is the purpose of studying fiqh. Why should you spend your time learning fiqh? What is the importance of fiqh in the life of a Muslim? Okay, you could be learning hadith right now. You could be learning tafsir. You could be learning the Arabic language. Why should you spend your time learning fiqh? Then after that, we'll be speaking about the ruling of studying fiqh. What is the ruling? All right. Is this something that you have to learn or not? And then we'll speak about the rulings in the legislation, meaning the sharia. The sharia. Of course, everyone, please turn off your videos. Jazakumullah khairah. After speaking about the rulings in the legislation, the shara', we're going to look at some of the masadir or the sources in fiqh that the Hanabila use in deriving rulings. Okay? And of course, this is different according to every school of thought. Then we'll take a look at some of the reasons as to why there's difference of opinions, right? When you study fiqh, you'll learn that there are many differences of opinions depending on the school that you follow. Yani, what is the reason for these differences of opinion? Why can't they just agree on one statement? That's it. Okay? And then we'll take a look at the 4 different schools of thought or madhahib in Islam. All right? This is our overview for today, inshallah ta'ala. Today's class will be fairly short. We try to keep the class within an hour. But if we go past an hour, then we ask you all to forgive us and to be a little patient as well. There are some things that we require the students to memorize. Okay, this is not just a regular class. You come and sit. You may be cooking or preparing something or just this is a real class in which you have to sit down and take notes. And we're going to share our notes as well. But it's upon the student to take their own notes, their own commentary that they hear from the lecture, and to also memorize some of the points that we're going to mention. Okay. If you have the ability to memorize in Arabic, that's best, okay? But you should be able to at least memorize these points in English, all right? So there's some things in which you have to memorize, and we're going to point them out, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. And perhaps if the students agree, at the end of this course, we may have an exam for those who wish to take it. But it depends on everyone who attends, okay? And once again, this course is going to be going over the Hanbali madhab. And before we begin with the actual masail, I'd like to mention that the fuqaha, the scholars of fiqh, they mention when you study fiqh, there's a certain way in which you have to study fiqh. Okay? When you begin studying fiqh, you cannot just start with learning the differences of opinions between the madhahib. This is not how a person learns fiqh. Right? So for example, the issue of music comes up. And then you start learning about what do the Shafi'i say, what do the Hanabila say, what do the Ahnaf say, what do the scholars of Maliki madhab say. This is not how a person studies fiqh. All right? There's a certain methodology. And our Shaykh Abdul Salam al-Shuwayr from the scholars in Riyadh, but he comes to Mecca on a monthly basis, and he teaches a lot of, mashallah, many books of fiqh. And he said one time that in order for a person to truly develop in learning fiqh and to become rasikh, to become someone who is firmly grounded in this science, he has to follow 4 things. Okay? He said that is ينبغي لطالب العلم وخاصة لطالب الفقه. It is imperative, it is obligatory, it's required for any student of knowledge, specifically for the student of fiqh, to learn fiqh first by at-ta'liq, something called at-ta'liq. We're going to write this down. تعليق ثم التحقيق ثم التدقيق وإياك التفليق وإياك التفليق. What do these terms mean? What do these words mean? All right, he says that a student must begin with at-ta'liq. What does ta'liq mean? It means that you begin studying a book, right? Whatever book that you're studying, you find a sheikh who can, or a student who can explain to you the masail. So you read the book, for example, Zad al-Mustaqni', okay, or Umda, al-Umda by Ibn Qudama al-Maqdisi, a very basic beginner fiqh book in the Hanbali madhab. You sit down with the sheikh or the student, whoever explaining it, and you read the book to the sheikh, or the sheikh is reading the book to you. But as you're reading the book, you're not going into many details. You're just trying to understand what is the imam saying, what is the scholar saying. Okay, you'll find that the book, you'll say that nawaqid al-wudu thamaniya, that the nullifiers of wudu are 8. Zawal al-aql, kada wa kada wa kada wa kada, to the end. Okay, you just are trying to understand what the imam is saying. So the scholar is going to comment on the intent of the musannif, of the author. What did the imam mean by this letter? What did this imam mean by that word? What did the imam mean by, that statement? Okay, so it's very basic, a very basic understanding. You just understand the matan. You're not going into dalil. You're not going into differences of opinion. Okay, so once you pass this first marhala, this first stage of ta'liq, just understanding and memorizing the matan, the statement of the scholar and his book, you then, after finishing this first, and you finish the book from beginning to end, you then read the book again. Okay, and then you enter into this second marhala, this second stage, which is known as at-tahqiq. Okay, and in this marhala, in this stage, you begin to read the book once again, but now the sheikh is going to provide the evidence for each statement. Okay, so what is the evidence that you have to pray, or what is the evidence that Surah Al-Fatiha is a pillar of the salah? La salata liman lam yaqra bi fatihat al-kitab. He'll mention a hadith. This is the evidence. Or maybe an ayah, right? What is the evidence for the conditions of making wudu? Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu idha qumtum min as-salati faghsilu wujuhakum ila al-akhir ayah. Right? The ayah Surah Al-Ma'idah. In this stage, this is when the sheikh begins to mention the adillah, the evidences for each masal, each statement that the musannaf has said. So now that you have memorized the text and you've understood the intent of the author, in this stage you begin to memorize the adillah, the evidences from the Kitab al-Sunnah. Now, after you finish the second stage of at-tahqiq, you then move on to the third stage, which is the final stage, and it's something called at-tadqiq. At-tadqiq. And what is at-tadqiq? At-tadqiq is now when you begin to, please turn your videos off. You begin to learn the differences of opinions. Now you start looking to the Hanafi, the Ahnaf, and the Hanafi madhab. What do they say about this mas'ala? You look into the Shafi'iyin, right? The Shafi'iyun. What do those scholars say about this mas'ala? You look to the scholars on the Malaika, the Maliki madhab, and what are their statements pertaining to this mas'ala? Okay? Once you have mastered your own madhab, and you understand your madhab, and you have a foundation of your madhab, that's when you branch out and start looking at other madhahib. Okay? And this is how you study fiqh. And the Shaykh Abdul Salam, he mentioned, وَإِيَّاكَ تَفْلِيقِ, and beware of deviating from this path. Right? Beware of deviating from this path. Beware of skipping a ta'liq, or perhaps skipping a tahqiq, and going straight to a tadqiq, which lil-asaf shadid, many people have entered into today. Right? Many people, if you look in the internet, or maybe just go to the masjid, and you see many people, they just start talking and saying, oh, the Malikiyun, they say this is their opinion, and the Hanifiyun, this is their opinion, and the Shafi'un, this is their opinion. They don't even have a firm foundation of their own madhab, but they're able to talk about differences of opinions. And you'll find that these people are the most ignorant of the bunch, right? They don't have any type of knowledge. They don't have the patience, because it takes patience to finish a book. They don't have the patience and sabr to take this methodology of beginning with a matan, studying it, understanding it with a sheikh, then going over the adillah, and then beginning with the differences of opinions. So this is the methodology that we want to take, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Okay, anyone who decides to study fiqh with us, we're trying to go through each kitab al-fiqh, kitab al-salah, kada wa kada wa kada, and try to take this approach. Okay, of course, some places will mention statements of Ibn Uthaymin, rahimahullah ta'ala, and statements of Ibn Taymiyyah, but a general overview of how we're going to study the madhab is by following this methodology mentioned by Shaykh Abdul Salam al-Shuwair. May Allah preserve him. I mean, and another thing that you'll notice that every scholar, every single scholar, doesn't matter who they are, all of them began by learning a madhab. Shaykh Albani, he had a madhab. Shaykh Ibn Uthaymin, rahimahullah ta'ala, he had a madhab. Shaykh Fawzan, he began with a madhab. Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah had a madhab. He followed the madhab. Ibn al-Qayyim, they followed the madhab. Every scholar, even when you read the books, the narrators of hadith, you'll find that at the end of their name, it would say al-Hanafi or al-Hanbali, al-Shafi'i, right? Al-Maliki. Why? Because they all follow a madhab. Okay, but they did not have something called ta'assub. They did not have something called ta'assub. And ta'assub is blind following the madhab to a point where even if authentic evidence has come, they choose and prefer their madhab's views over the evidence. Okay, and that's something very important. Like we mentioned in the beginning, we've been commanded to follow the kitab wa sunnah. Okay, but we use the madhab as an aid, as a crutch, to help, as training wheels, to help us in understanding the sharia. Okay, and even those imams you just mentioned, although they began with a madhab, that was their foundation. And once they mastered that foundation, they were able to branch off into differences of opinions until they became mujtahidun. They had the ability to provide the difference between the right and the wrong in a particular issue. So you guys with me so far? At the end of the class, inshallah, we'll take any questions, but the questions have to be regarding the content that we taught. Okay? Not just some random question that you think about. This is not the place for that. The book that we're going to study, what's the book that we're going to study? The book that we're going to study, inshallah ta'ala, is a mudhakkira taught in Jamia al-Qura in the Ma'had. Okay, this is the mudhakkira. And when we say mudhakkira, we mean that this is a book that was compiled by, modern days, scholars and teachers. And they summarized, the content is basically summarized from books of the past. Okay, the content within this mudhakkira is summarized from the books of the past. Okay, and that is what is a mudhakkira. This is a mudhakkira that is taught in our school in the Ma'had. The Ma'had is a 2-year Arabic learning institution that every student who's a wafid, who's outside of Saudi Arabia, they have to attend. And they learn the language, they learn fiqh, they learn hadith, they learn the tools that they need in order to study at a university level. Okay, so when a student finishes these 2 years, they're able to go into the university and they have the knowledge, the basic knowledge that they need in order to build on that in the university. Okay, just like in college, right? When you go to college in the States, there's certain things in which you have to know, right? There's certain things you have to know. And in college, that's when they refine that knowledge and they go into details, etc. Same thing here, okay? There's certain things you have to learn before going to Jami' al-Qura, the kulliyat. And this book is actually a summary of 3 books in the Hanbali madhab. We mentioned that from these books were Zad Mustaqni', okay, also Al-Udda في الفقه, as you can see here, Al-Udda في فقه Imam al-Sunnah, Ahmad bin Hanbal al-Shaybani, the Sheikh Bahauddin al-Maqdisi. Also the book Hidayat al-Raghib, Sharh Umdat al-Talib. Hidayat al-Raghib is a book that is an explanation of another book which is called Umdat al-Talib. Hidayat al-Raghib was authored by Sheikh Mansour. Sheikh Mansour, who is also the explainer, the explainer of Zad al-Mustaqni', known as Ar-Rawd al-Murbi'. طيب. And also the last book being Zad al-Mustaqni' by Al-Hajawi. Mumtaz. So on the on the left-hand side will be the text that we're studying, and then the right-hand side of the screen will be the English. Yani, I just summarized what's being said on the left-hand side of the screen, okay? So for those students, because we have students on different levels, right? Some students, they have some background in Arabic. Some students, they have no background in Arabic. So for those who have a background in Arabic, they're able to memorize certain points in Arabic, while those who don't have a background in Arabic, they're able to follow and memorize those things in English, okay? So that we're able to cater to students on all levels, all right? So let's begin, bidnai ta'ala. First thing we want to discuss is, of course, the definition. What does fiqh mean? Okay, what is fiqh? Linguistically, fiqh means fahm, al-fahm, yani understanding. Like, for example, the ayah in Surah Hud, قالوا يا شعيب ما نفقه كثيرا مما تقول. Oh Shu'aib, Shu'aib's people said to him, alayhi salam, that we ما نفقه, yani ما نفهم, we do not understand much of what you say. Right? And what did they intend? Because Shu'aib, he was a prophet, and he was calling them to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, giving them da'wah to la ilaha illallah, and they responded to him in arrogance. Ma nafqahu, we don't understand much of what you say. Subhanallah bihamdi. So here, fiqh, lughatan, linguistically, means understanding, fahm. طيب. Then it says here, according to the scholars of fiqh, يعني في اصطلاح العلماء, يعني according to the scholars, the terminology of fiqh according to the scholars of fiqh. And before we continue, I'd like to point out something that many times if you read a lot of Arabic books, you'll find that whenever they define a word, they usually give the meaning of the word linguistically, يعني لغة, صح? What does that word mean in the language, in the lugha? Then they'll give the meaning sometimes shar'an. They'll mention shar'an. Let's write this word down. They'll say sometimes shar'an. And then sometimes they'll say what? Istilahan. طيب. So these are three terms you'll see when reading Arabic books. What's intended by shar'an and istilahan? When they say shar'an, then the intent is that the word has been defined in the Sharia, meaning by Allah Azza wa Jalla or His Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Okay? But when they say istilahan, then they mean the word as defined by scholars. Why? Why is that? Because there's some words that were not used in the time of the companions, the time of the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Okay? There's certain words like tajweed. Tajweed. Did Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam say recite the Quran with tajweed? Did Allah say recite with tajweed? No, there were other terms that were used. Tartilan, mathalan. Okay? Another word, aqidah. Aqidah, the word aqidah, yani a Muslim's creed, what you believe in, your belief. This word was not used in the text. It wasn't used by the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam as it is known as today. Okay? However, they derive these terms based from the scholars come after, after death of the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and after the companions. They derive these terms based on the content within the Sharia. Okay? In order, why? Why did they do that? Yani, in order to make it easier for us to understand. All right? They do it as a khidmah, as a service for the ummah. Because we do not understand Arabic as the companions understood Arabic. So therefore, we need some type of help. We need some type of breakdown in order to understand what's being said, okay, and what is intended, okay? So when they say istilahan, what's intended is, what does that word mean according to that to that science, okay? And a word will have a different meaning according to the science. Mathalan, the word and we'll go over this word soon. Mustahab. Mustahab. Who has heard of the word mustahab? What does mustahab mean? Loved. Mustahab. Okay. Like loved, recommended, favored. Okay, recommendation. Excellent. These are all different definitions of mustahab, preferred. Excellent, right? But when you say, also, if a person can't hear anything, then they have to exit the group, exit the classroom, and re-enter. All right, just make sure somebody writes that in the chat room if they can't hear anything. طيب. Well, mustahab in fiqh means something that is preferred, correct? طيب. What about the word sunnah? The word sunnah. What does sunnah mean? When you hear sunnah, you usually understand that it means mustahab, correct? And we just define mustahab. طيب. Well, sunnah in fiqh can take that meaning, okay, of something that is mustahab. Yani, if you do it, you're rewarded. If you leave it off, then there's no sin upon you. But sunnah, according to the scholars of Aqidah, when they say sunnah, what's intended is not those actions that if you do it, you're rewarded, and if you leave it off, yani, you're not rewarded. Yani, you're not sinful, right? You're not being punished for it, okay? Rather, when the scholars of Aqidah say sunnah, they mean yani, the usul al-din, your religion, those beliefs that you have to believe in. Yani, i'tiqad jazim, those affairs in which you cannot have doubt in. That's the meaning of sunnah according to the scholars of Aqidah, okay? And that's why you have ulama like Imam Ahmad rahimahullah ta'ala. He has a book called Usul al-Sunnah, meaning the foundations of your Aqidah, okay? Al-Barbahari, right? He has a book called Sharh as-Sunnah, explanation of those affairs in which you have to believe in. As-Sunnah, okay? Sunnah, so that's Sunnah according to the ulama of Aqidah. Sunnah according to the ulama of Hadith, it has a different meaning. It means those actions and statements and those approvals and those descriptions, be it yani, his physical descriptions or his yani, mannerisms. All of these things are considered to be sunnah according to the ulama of hadith. Okay, so scholars of hadith have a certain meaning of the word sunnah. Scholars of aqidah, they have a certain meaning for the word sunnah. Scholars of fuqaha, yani of fiqh, they have a certain meaning for the word sunnah. So this is why they say istilahan. Yani, what does that word mean to a particular group of scholars, a particular science? So what does fiqh mean? According to who? The scholars of fiqh. All right. What does it mean? أي هنا العلم بالأحكام الشرعية العملية المكتسبة من أدلتها التفصيلية, which means knowledge of legislative rulings pertaining to actions, okay? Actions of what? Actions of the limbs. Actions of the limbs. Why do we say actions of the limbs? If we said actions of the heart, would that include fiqh or would that include a different science? If we said actions of the heart, what science would that be pertaining to? Aqidah, right? Dua, yani tawakkul, ikhlas, khashya, having fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? Relying on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, seeking his aid. These are actions of the heart. So when we talk about fiqh, we're not speaking about actions of the heart. Rather, we're speaking about actions of the limbs. Let's include that. Actions of the limbs. Okay? Because action of the hearts deals with aqidah, the science of aqidah, of the servant. And for this reason, you'll find like in the past, you'll find that scholars, when they refer to fiqh, they call it this, fiqhu or al-fiqhu al-asghar, meaning the smaller fiqh. Okay? And then when they refer to aqidah, they would call it what? Al-fiqhu al-akbar. Okay? When you read like books in the past, they refer to aqidah as al-fiqh al-akbar because they deal with the actions of the heart. And of course, that's more important, right? Aqidah is more important because if your aqidah is corrupted, then you can be in hellfire forever. All right? Very important point. You have to learn aqidah because if your aqidah, your creed, your belief system is corrupted, you can be in the hellfire forever. But if you have a wrong understanding of certain acts of worship and how to perform it, then you may be forgiven by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? You may be ignorant, you may have not known, right? Then Allah may have forgiveness on you and it won't land you in the hellfire. Okay, but aqidah, there's no room for that. All right, there's no room for that. So this is the reason why aqidah is called fiqh al-akbar and fiqh is called fiqh al-asghar. So we're dealing with the action of the limbs of the servant that are derived from specific evidences, okay? So these are basically evidences derived from the text, okay? And there's a certain way in which these fuqaha derive those evidences, okay? And every madhab, they have a specific way in how they derive evidences. We are going to study how, or we're going to learn masail that were derived by the Hanbali madhab, by the Hanbali scholars, okay? طيب. So that's the definition, لغة and istilahan, يعني linguistically and the intended meaning, according to that science. Mumtaz. Everyone with me so far? Are we moving too fast? Please tell me if I'm talking too fast as well. I'm from New York, so we kind of talk a little fast sometimes. Or everyone good? Everyone with me? Okay. طيب. So what's the purpose of studying fiqh? Ask yourself, why are you spending your time learning fiqh? Why should you learn fiqh, right? You could be reading Quran right now. Why should you spend your time learning fiqh? طيب. The purpose of studying fiqh, here's the al-ghaya min dirasat al-fiqh. And the summary of this statement of this paragraph, this faqra, is for the Muslim to learn how to properly worship Allah in a manner that is pleasing to him. Okay? The reason why you should study fiqh is so that you can worship Allah correctly in a way that He is legislated. Okay? And that requires studying it. Right? Nothing's going to just come to your heart or come to your head and teach you how to worship Allah, right? You don't worship Allah based on your desires. There's a systematic way of learning this Sharia and learning how to worship Allah. And this is why He sent down the Quran and He sent down a messenger to teach you the Quran. So therefore you have to learn it. And this is the purpose. Okay? طيب. So now that we learned the purpose, right? And of course we have to learn what Allah made halal for us. بما أحل الله, what Allah made halal for us, and what He prohibited us from. Okay? What to stay away from. طيب. And it says here, there's a hadith on Muawiyah radiallahu ta'ala anhu, that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said, Man yuridillahu bihi khayran yufaqihu fi din. Collecting Bukhari, the Sahih of Imam Bukhari. It says here, whoever Allah wants good for, He grants him understanding. Yufaqihu, ay yufahimhu fi din. He gives him understanding of the religion. And the scholars, they derive from this, Shaykh bin Baz rahimahullah ta'ala, he says that if you find yourself always or constantly attending classes, listening to lectures, reading books, yani you're on a daily basis or maybe on a weekly basis, yani, but it's something consistent in your life that you're constantly learning your religion, then know for sure that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants good for you. Subhanallah bihamdi. This is bushra from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So everyone here who's listening to this lecture, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose for you to be here. Why? Because He wants good for you. So you have to say, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. You have to be thankful. You have to be grateful to Him, subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because He's the one that allowed you to be here. You could be, watching YouTube right now, watching a football game, watching a basketball game, out with friends, wasting time, kadha wa kadha. But Allah chose for you, and you decided to be here learning your religion. So this is a sign that Allah wants good for you. Subhanallah bihamdi. Can you imagine that? Allah chose you, yani you by your name, to be here. You should feel humbled. Alhamdulillah. It's a blessing. And scholars, they derive from this hadith as well. Naam, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us all ikhlas. Ameen. Very important. They derive from this hadith as well the mafhum mukhalafa, yani the opposite, that whoever Allah does not want good for, He does not grant him fiqh of the deen. Subhanallah. So those people whom Allah Azza wa Jal does not want good for, He'll keep them away from durus. He'll keep them away from learning their religion. He'll keep them busied with things in the dunya that will harm them, because He does not want good for that individual. Subhanallah bihamdi. May Allah make us of those who He wants good for. Ameen. Tayyib. Khayran. So what is the ruling of studying fiqh? We learned the purpose, why we should spend our time learning fiqh. Yani what is the ruling? The hukm ta'allumul fiqh. Hukmu ta'allumil fiqh. Tayyib. The ruling of studying fiqh, yani there's two aspects in which you can look at it. From one aspect, it's going to be fardun ayn, and from another aspect, it's going to be fardun kifaya. Okay? Now, what is fardun ayn and what is fardun kifaya? When we say fardun ayn, then what's intended is that this thing that we're learning is obligatory upon every Muslim to learn, no exception whatsoever. Like shahada, yani to learn what does shahada mean, how to apply it in your life, right? What does it entail? This is something obligatory upon every Muslim. La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. Okay? You have to learn, what does that mean? How can you apply it in your life? What are the conditions of it? Etc. Likewise, salah. Salah is obligatory upon every Muslim, right? So you have to learn, it's fardun ayn upon everyone. They have to learn how to pray properly, how to recite certain, adhkar and certain positions, what surah to recite, which is obligatory, surah al-Fatiha, right? The correct order, the pillars, etc. This is something considered to be fardun ayn. Everyone has to do it. Fardun kifaya or fardul kifaya is something in which if some do it, then the rest of the community, yani the obligation has been lifted. They don't have to perform it. Like, for example, Salatul Janazah. If somebody passes away, a Muslim, then if a few people do it, then that suffices for everyone else. Okay, everyone doesn't have to pray. Okay. Likewise, seeking knowledge. Okay, there has to be at least one person in a community, in a masjid, in a mantaqa, in a place, in a locality, that has learned their religion, whether it's by going overseas or learning online through via scholars or students. Learning their religion properly and become mutamassik fi, well grounded. If one person does this, then the obligation has been lifted on the entire community, because there has to be at least one person where you're able to ask questions, learn about your deen, learn about benefit things that are obligatory upon you to perform in your life. Okay, so that is considered to be fardul kifaya. In terms of the ruling of studying fiqh, it is fardul ayn, as we just said, from the aspect of knowing the basics of what is obligatory to worship Allah. So salah, wudu, right? What else? Sawm Ramadan, fasting Ramadan, etc. As for fardul kifaya, then it's considered to be fardul kifaya from the aspect of knowing specific details of certain rulings. Okay, knowing specific details. So like, knowing when or how much a person inherits. Not everyone has to learn that, okay? But there has to be at least one person who learns that in a community, okay? Knowing how to pay zakah on like animals, for example, or gold, knowing how much must be given from that particular amount. Only a few people have to learn how that's done. Not everyone, okay? Because everyone, they can ask the scholar, ask the student to help them in that affair. طيب. That's example of fard kifaya. Likewise, learning the details. What are specific details regarding certain acts of worship? That's considered to be fard kifaya. طيب. After that, the musannif, the person who compiled this mudhakkira, he says al-faqih. He gives a definition for the faqih. Now that we learned the ruling, then who is the faqih? Who is the one who is considered to have fiqh? When we say faqih, then he is the one who's able to derive rulings from the text and provide legal rulings to others, yani other masail, other issues. طيب, that is the faqih. طيب. Here it says a tatbiq. A tatbiq basically means it's an exercise testing your understanding of what you just learned. So here are some questions. Whoever feels like doing it, they can do it. This will be homework if anyone desires in doing so. And these questions are good to help you in testing yourself, your understanding. First question is define fiqh linguistically, or define fiqh and its linguistical meaning. Linguistical meaning. Or linguistically, khalas. 2. Second question will be what? بماذا عرف العلماء الفقه? Okay. How do the scholars define fiqh? Meaning, what is the istilahi meaning? What is the technical meaning of fiqh? Third question, ما حكم تعلم الفقه? تعلم الفقه. What is the ruling of learning fiqh? 4. متى يكون الإنسان فقيها? When does a person become a faqih? We can leave that. ما المراد بفرض العين? يعني what is the intent of فرض العين? Meaning, what is فرض العين? What is فرض العين? These are things we already explained. And give an example. Provide an example. Something that's فرض العين. Number 5 will be what? متى يكون تعلم الفقه فرض العين or فرض عين? When does fiqh become فرض العين? When does learning fiqh become فرض العين? And 6, من هو الفقيه? Okay, who is the faqih? So these are 6 questions you can do for homework, inshallah, and you can share the answers within the groups that you guys are in. Okay? Let's move on to we got a couple more minutes. We're almost done, alhamdulillah. Rulings in the legislation. Okay. The ahkam al-shar'iyya. Now, طيب. In Islam, in the Sharia, every mas'ala that you learn, every issue that you learn is either going to fall within 1 out of 5 rulings. Okay? They're either going to fall within the ruling of something becoming obligatory, wajib, something is wajib, or something that is recommended, mandub, or something that is permissible, mubah, or something that is disliked, makruh, or something that is prohibited, haram. Okay? The rulings of legislation are broken down into 5. Wajib. What is the definition of wajib? Yani, it is actions where one is rewarded for performing the action and sinful / subject to punishment if left off. Like salah. Salah is something that is wajib 5 times a day. If a person does it, then you're rewarded for it. Right? But if you leave it off, then you're sinful. 2, you are subject to punishment by Allah Azza wa Jalla. Okay? And some scholars even say, right, if a person leaves off salah intentionally altogether and doesn't want to pray, then they're not even considered to be Muslim. Okay? They're not considered to be Muslim. And there are many ahadith to back that up. So that's wajib. Next, mandub is something that is recommended. Recommended meaning actions where one is rewarded for performing the action, but not sinful if left off. Meaning if a person doesn't do it, they're not attaining a sin. Okay, but if they do it, then they get the reward. Like what? Give me an example. Like, for example, The miswak, the siwak. Right? What else? Sunnah prayer. Right? If you leave off the sunnah for fajr, you're not sinful, but rather, if you perform it, you get rewarded for it. What else? Duha prayer. Yes. What else? Yes, good, excellent. Someone asked, is mandub a synonym for mustahab? Yes, it's another word for the, it's a synonym for the word mustahab, mandub. Sleeping with wudu, good. Witr, tahajjud. All of these are acts that are considered to be mandub, ay mustahab, recommended. All right. And in the time of the companions, radiallahu ta'ala anhum, when they looked at an action, they didn't ask themselves, nor did they ask Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam if an action was wajib or mandub. They didn't do that. They didn't try to find a difference between the two. Rather, if they heard something from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, if he ordered something, then they rushed to carry it out, regardless if it was wajib or mandub. Okay, but us today, Allah musta'an, if we hear something is mandub, khalas, it already goes to our head, it goes to our understanding that we should leave it off. Allah musta'an, may Allah help the Muslims and help us all. I mean, but we should try to be like the Sahaba and apply as much sunnah in our lives as we can, especially if we are young and we have the ability, especially when we have good health. Because the older you get, I mean, the more susceptible you become in becoming sick and becoming, ajz, unable to perform certain acts. So if you preserve Allah, ihfadillah, if you preserve Allah while you're young, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala yahfaduk. He'll preserve you when you get older. If you preserve Allah's sharia, Allah's deen, when you had free time, Allah will preserve you when you become busy. Acts of worship will not become hard for you to perform when you start having 2 jobs, start having a family, right? If you preserve Allah when you had free time, worshiping Allah when you're busy, quote unquote, you have a family, you have 2 jobs, you have so much things on your mind, will become easy for you to perform. Okay? So this is something very important that we need to apply in our lives. That you worship Allah as much as you can, especially if you're young, you don't have a lot of responsibilities, and you have good health. Shout out to Allah, you will see the fruits of it later. Mubah. The third ruling is something called mubah. It's permissible. Basically, actions where one is not rewarded nor punished if performed or not. Okay? Like, for example, eating. Eating, just the simple action of eating by itself and drinking, you're not rewarded for it, nor are you punished for it. However, if you make your intentions, if you change your intentions, to eat food so that you can worship Allah properly, right? Because when you become hungry, you're not able to focus properly. So if you eat food in order to worship Allah, then in that case, you get rewarded for it. SubhanAllah. Look at the Sharia. Look at Allah's generosity. Allah Kareem, wallahi. Certain things, basic things like sleeping, right? Being good to your parents, being good to your neighbors, etc. If you have the proper intentions, then of course you'll be rewarded by Allah Azza wa Jalla. The fourth ruling is something called makruh, something that's disliked. And basically this is when actions where one is not punished for performing it, but is rewarded for leaving it off. Okay? Like, for example, eating thum, eating garlic, and going to the masjid. It's not haram to do that. Okay? Rather, something, according to some scholars, it is something that is disliked. Okay? Because of the bad smell. Okay? And performing salah. So if you decide to not do that, okay, you decide to clean your mouth before going to the masjid in order to get rid of that thum, the smell of the garlic, then you'll be rewarded for it. But if you go to the masjid and you pray like that, then to some scholars they say that it's makruh, meaning you won't get the sin for it. Okay, you will not be punished for it. All right. Please make sure your videos are off. Naam. Also, you'll find in the early generations, like the time of Imam Shafi'i, rahimahullah ta'ala, he has a book called Ar-Risala, where he speaks about fiqh, many different principles in usul of fiqh and other issues as well. And he uses the term al-makruh. Okay, something makruh. Today we understand makruh as being something disliked. This definition right here. Okay. However, in the time of Imam Shafi'i, rahimahullah ta'ala, he passed away the year 204 years after Hijrah, from the early generations, right? When he said makruh, what he intended was haram. SubhanAllah. Why? Because in the Quran, you'll find the word makruh or kariha or kuriha, right? When it's used in the Quran, then it takes the meaning of something that's haram. So because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used that word to mean haram, Imam Shafi'i, whenever he used the word makruh, then what he intended as well, that particular action is considered to be haram to perform. SubhanAllah. But today, Allah musta'an, when we say makruh, we say, some people, they think, all right, that's an ijazah, that's a chance for me to perform this action, right? SubhanAllah bihamdi. But makruh in reality should be stayed away from as much as possible, okay? Also, some people, they say, Allah musta'an, that smoking, tadkhin, sharb dukhan, that smoking is considered to be disliked, all right? But if you think about Islam, and if you ponder over the rulings of Islam that have come to preserve a community, to preserve a person's life, to preserve others, right? And how many rulings there are that protects Muslims from harm, right? La darara wa la dirara. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, no harm and no reciprocation of harm, right? Ad-darar yuzal. This is the principle, qaida fiqhiyya. That harm should be removed. And then you look at the effects of cigarettes upon a person. One, what it does to a person's lungs, and two, what it does to people around him. Right? When a person smokes, the effects of secondhand smoking. And it's gotten so worse, subhanAllah bihamdi, that you find it's gotten so bad that you'll find that even kuffar nations in America, America is a campaign in preventing people from trying to prevent people from smoking, right? They raise the prices. There's ads on, about tobacco. Look how much money has been spent in discouraging people from smoking, smoking cigarettes. So if the kuffar realize the dangers of cigarettes, and we see that the Islam, it protects people's health and the health of others, how can a person come and, sensibly say that smoking cigarettes is something that is makruh, disliked? Kalla. Rather, smoking is something that is haram. Okay? And if you don't know, and if you don't want to believe it, then look at those videos which shows the effects of smoking of people, they look at what happens to their lungs, subhanAllah bihamdi, and look at the diseases that people have. May Allah protect us all. And if there's anyone who's afflicted with this disease, we ask Allah to cure them and to cure all of our family members and friends who are afflicted with this disease. Ameen. So that's makruh, disliked. This is something that is disliked. The last ruling is something that is haram, prohibited, and these are pertaining to actions where one is sinful and subject to punishment if performed, but if it is left off, then that person, of course, will be rewarded for it. Like what? What is something that is haram? Fornication, having girlfriends, having boyfriends, right? If a person decides to fear Allah Azza wa Jalla and protect themselves, have some type of reverence of Allah, to not fall into fornication, may Allah protect us all, then they will enter, they will be rewarded for it and enter into paradise. But if they choose to follow their desires and try to enjoy the enjoyments of this dunya, then they will be prevented from enjoying the enjoyments of the hereafter. May Allah protect us all from that. Ameen. So these are the 5 rulings. SubhanAllah bihamdi. We only have 5 minutes left. So let's go a little fast, inshallah ta'ala. Sources of fiqh, masadir al-fiqh al-Islami. Okay, what are the sources? Like, where do we derive our rulings from? Where do we derive our rulings from? One, of course, we derive it from the Quran. Kalamullah Azza wa Jalla. What is the meaning of the Quran? Here's the definition. It is the speech of Allah, a miracle sent upon Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam via the trustworthy intermediary, the wasita, Jibreel alayhi salam. Okay, intermediary. written down, we know the Quran has been written down in the Mus'haf, right? And relayed via multitude of sources, meaning something that's tawatur. Tawatur, what does this mean? Yani, I'll give you an example. Who here has been to China? Is there anyone here who lives in China or has been to China? MashaAllah, we have students from all over the world. Is there anyone from China here? Ashadiya, are you from China? She wrote yes. I'm not sure why she wrote yes. Okay, let's assume no one's from China. Okay. How do you know China exists? Oh, you've been to China. Okay, subhanAllah. So you've seen it. All right. What about Japan? Anyone here from Japan? Or anyone been to Japan before? Okay, let's assume no one here has been to Japan. How do you know Japan exists? If you've never been there, you've never seen it with your eyes. How can you affirm that it exists? You heard of it? Okay, did you hear about Japan from one person? Oh, okay, so you've seen pictures. Okay. You've seen it on the map, you've seen videos, people, you learned it at school. SubhanAllah bihamdi. Everything you learned at school is true. Allahu Alam. Okay, you heard it from the news. Khalas. Yani you heard from people. It is something that is tawatur. Yani it's something that's agreed upon by millions of people that there's a country called Japan. And there's proof for it. Okay? It's not just one person who informed you that Japan exists. Rather, it's millions of people. Likewise, the Quran is considered to be tawatur. Yani, the Quran has been relayed to us via thousands, hundreds of thousands, now even millions of people. SubhanAllah bihamdi, recite the Quran in one way. Okay? So it's impossible for all of those people to be considered, or to be considered liars, right? Likewise, it's impossible to call all of those people who told you about Japan and you've seen it on the map and you've seen videos of it. It's impossible to say that all of that are lies. Likewise, it's impossible to say the Quran, yani everything in the Quran it's been altered. How can it be altered if everyone recites it the same way? Millions of people recite it the same way. Okay? If you look in the books, when scholars quote those ayats hundreds of years ago, 1,000 years ago, they all wrote it the same way. Okay? They wrote it the same way. So this is what's meant by tawatur. Yani multitude of the sources have affirmed it. Okay? So this is what's included within the definition of Quran, and it begins with Surah Al-Fatiha and ending with Surah An-Nas. You guys understand? You guys with me? What is the meaning of sunnah? This is the second source in our Sharia. Yani we derive rulings from the Quran and we also derive rulings from the sunnah. Okay? And it is what it has been traced back to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, from his statements, from his actions, from his approvals, from his physical descriptions and his mannerisms. Yani sunnah khalqiyya wa khuluqiyya. Okay? Sifat khalqiyya wa khuluqiyya. طيب? Of course, give me a statement of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What's an example of that? What's an example of a statement of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? No one? Sallu kama ra'aytumuni usalli. Yes, good. Pray as you see me pray. Right? Ad-dinu nasiha. The religion is sincere advice. Excellent. What's an example of an action of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam that he would used to do? An action. Good. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he would eat with his right hand. Excellent. He would smile. Excellent. What about approval? What's an approval? Good. Give me an example of an approval. What about the dab? That lizard, in which is mentioned in Sahih Bukhari, at which some of the companions would eat around him. They ate the dab, they ate that lizard. And when they asked the Prophet ﷺ, they saw Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he did not eat it. They asked him why. He said, ليس من طعام من أهل طعام من أهلي هذا طعام ليس من أهلي. Okay, مقال, that this ta'am, this food is not for my people. Okay, so he decided not to eat it. But he approved of their actions by not prohibiting them from it, or etc. Example of a physical description of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Physical description, good. He had a long beard, right? He had a beard. What else? His hair was in between his earlobe and his shoulder. Good. He had soft hands. Good. He was neither tall nor short, etc. Right? What about mannerisms? Example of mannerisms. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He was shy. What else? He was gentle. Right? He was humble. He was patient, etc. All of these are considered to be sunnah. Anything related to these 5 things are considered to be sunnah. Okay? And it's a source that's derived. Okay? طيب. As for consensus, and subhanAllah, we're like, it's 11 o'clock right now. So do you guys want to continue? We have a couple more points, or do you want to end the class here and continue the next class? It's up to you guys. Should we end class here? Because our agreement was it's going to be for an hour. So I don't want to oppress anyone. You know, somebody's just, perhaps they'll last their night start making dua against me. I can't risk that. So somebody says 2 a.m. at their place. SubhanAllah bihamdi. One person said end. Others said continue. All right. So for those who want to leave, they can leave, inshallah, and you can catch up in the recording. Okay? Because a lot of people are saying continue. All right? Someone says 4 a.m., wherever they are. All right, let's continue. All right, the third source of fiqh is something called consensus or ijma', and it's an agreement between all companions of an Islamic ruling after the death of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The fourth source of fiqh is something called analytical deduction, yani qiyas. It's the ability to deduct a ruling from a known mas'ala and apply it to a newer mas'ala. So an example of this is like hashish, or let's say marijuana. Marijuana wasn't something known in the time of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? However, what does marijuana do? It causes the person's aql to not work 100%, right? It removes the aql from some aspect, okay? It removes a person's senses, or alters a person's senses, ability to, to function properly, okay? So, because there's no ruling, there's nothing in the Quran saying marijuana is haram. However, there is a ruling pertaining to khamr. And what is khamr? Khamr is not alcohol, okay? Rather, alcohol is a form of khamr, okay? Khamr is anything, it's an intoxicant, anything that removes a person or alters a person's judgment, his aql, okay? So because we know khamr is haram, as mentioned in many ayat and ahadith, and marijuana has a similar effects of alcohol in terms of removing or altering the aql, the intellect and senses. Here, qiyas is being made, showing that it takes the same ruling of alcohol, although it's a newer mas'ala. It's something that's new. It wasn't apparent or widespread in time of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this is an example of qiyas. All right. طيب. And the last source within the Hanbali madhab is something called ijtihad, independent reasoning. And this is where a mujtahid is able to derive rulings for issues that do not have a ruling mentioned in the Quran, in the text, Quran and Hadith. This is different from qiyas. Qiyas, there's a ruling already present for something, okay? And the scholar says this mas'ala, this issue, takes the ruling of that hukm thabit, of that ruling that has been agreed upon, okay? However, ijtihad is pertaining to something that has no ruling or anything that's similar to it at all. There's nothing in the Sharia that is similar to this issue at all, okay? This is what ijtihad deals with, okay? Or perhaps ijtihad can also be pertaining to, two different mas'alatan, two issues, and trying to try to bring a reasoning between the two. Okay, perhaps maybe there may be two texts where there's a clear contradiction in terms of the wording, right? For example, it's mentioned in the hadith that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says, whenever you use the bathroom, then do not face the qibla, nor put your back towards the qibla. So don't face it, nor put your back towards the qibla. Rather, relieve yourself with your sides facing the qibla. Okay? And then another hadith, both of them Bukhari, Muslim, the other hadith is mentioned that Ibn Umar radiallahu anhuma, he saw Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam enter the house of his sister, okay, which was his wife, and relieved himself. He used the bathroom while facing the qibla. Okay, if you look at these two ahadith, these hadithan, there seems to be a clear contradiction, correct? One hadith, Prophet Muhammad said, do not face nor place your back towards the qibla. The other hadith, the Prophet did it himself. Okay? There seems to be a clear contradiction. However, in reality, there's no contradiction. Why? Because if you look at the context of the hadith, it says that Ibn Umar, he saw Prophet Muhammad in the bathroom of his sisters, meaning her house. So there was a wall between Prophet Muhammad and the Kaaba. So they derive from this hadith that it is permissible to use the bathroom facing the Qibla if there's something blocking you and the Qibla. Yani this is what the mujtahid does. He finds a way to bring al-jam' bayna nasayn. He tries to join between two hadith that may be contradictory towards one another. Okay? This is called ijtihad. This is another form of ijtihad. All right? Moving on. Let's look at the reason for differences of opinions quickly. Why do we have different madhahib? Why can't the imams just agree? Why can't these schools agree on one issue? Why does there have to be an ikhtilaf? Okay, what's the purpose of it? Well, there's many. Of course, mankind, we were not all created the same. We all have different intellects. We have different reasonings. We have different upbringings. We have different levels of education. We all think differently. Okay? So when a person looks at something, person A and person B looks at something, it's natural to have two different aspects, two different understandings. Okay? And this is one of the reasons for difference of opinions. The first reason we have here, and this is what we're going to discuss here. The first reason we have, they differed pertaining to the authenticity of a hadith. So some hadith, depending on the scholar, are considered to be weak, and some hadith are considered to be authentic. All right. One madhab may use that weak hadith to prove their point. Another madhab say, no, we can't use that hadith because it's weak. All right. So there's a difference from that aspect. Another difference is pertaining to the understanding of the hadith. Okay. The hadith may have, a scholar may understand one thing from this hadith, and another scholar may understand something different. And there's an example of this from the time of the companions, where Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he told a group of companions, do not pray Asr until you reach Bani Qurayza, until you reach a certain tribe. So these companions went on this journey, and the time of Asr came in. And there was a group of companions who said that Asr has come in, and we don't have enough time to pray Asr at Bani Qurayza, where they were located. So let's pray it now so that we don't miss the time of Salah. And then another group of companions say, no, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he strictly said, do not pray Asr until you reach Bani Qurayza. Okay? So that group, they decided to continue and delay their Salah. When both groups came back to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and they explained to him what had happened, one group differed and the other differed as well. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said to both of them, both of you were correct. Okay, both of you were correct. This shows what? That even the companions had different understanding of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam's statements. Okay, in some instances. Okay, So if that's regarding the companions, those who ate, lived, fought with Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what about those who came after who never met him? Okay. The third difference of opinion, or reason for difference of opinion, is pertaining to how to combine between texts that seem contradictory. Like we just mentioned the example of the bathroom. Okay. Scholars differ in how to bring reconciliation between those two texts. All right. And that's another reason for difference of opinion. And scholars also differ pertaining to the sources used in deriving rulings. There's some madhahib that don't use qiyas, analytical deduction. They don't use this as a form of or a source for fiqh. And it's for those reasons we have differences of opinions. Everyone with me so far? The last thing we want to explain today, inshallah ta'ala, we'll end the class, is pertaining to these four schools of thought. Of course, when these imams came, their intent wasn't to create a school. In fact, they didn't even create a school, a madhab. All right? What they tried to do is try to find the closest understanding of the kitab wa sunnah, of the Quran wa sunnah. They tried to find the closest understanding based on the Quran wa sunnah. But due to where they lived, and due to the scholars they were around, and due to the time that they lived in, right? They didn't have Google, they didn't have internet, they didn't have every hadith in their phone. They didn't even have phones, right? Due to those reasons and others, they were only able to work with what they had. Okay? So this is why you find that they give fatwa that sometimes may go against what's mentioned in the Quran and Hadith in the Sunnah. All right? Not all Hadith, right? And this is before Imam Bukhari. Imam Bukhari, right? Imam Abu Hanifa, he passed away when? 150 years after Hijrah. Imam Malik, 179 years after Hijrah. Imam Shafi'i, what? 204 years after Hijrah. Imam Ahmad, he passed away 241 years after the Hijrah. Imam Bukhari passed away 256 years after Hijrah. All right. So the books of hadith, all of them weren't even compiled yet that we have today, right? Imam Tirmidhi came after. Abu Dawood came after. Sunan Nasa'i came after. Ibn Majah came after, etc. Right? So they didn't even have every hadith with them. So they basically gave rulings based on what they had with them. All right? What they deemed to be closest to the Quran and Sunnah. And that's one of the reasons why you have these madhahib. So what happened is that their students, after they passed away, decided to collect their statements, their fatwa, their rulings, and they compiled their rulings within a book. Okay? And they decided to call this the madhab of Imam Abu Hanifa, the madhab of Imam Shafi'i, the madhab of Malik, Ahmad, etc. Like Awza'i, Layth, right? Other madhahib as well. Not just four, there's many. But these are the four that are most famous. طيب. So it was their students who compiled these madhahib. And over time, it was, there were some things that were added, some things that were deleted, differences of opinions, etc., etc., etc. Until we have it as we have it today. طيب. Basically, what we're going to focus on here regarding these four imams is to learn certain things about them. One, we have to learn their names. Okay? Two, we have to learn where did they live. And three, we have to learn when did they died. Okay? So Abu Hanifa, his name is, Abu Hanifa is actually a kunya applied to him. His actual name is what? Nu'man bin Thabit. Okay, not Nu'man bin Bashir. Nu'man bin Bashir was a companion. Nu'man bin Thabit was Abu Hanifa. That was his name. He died in the year what? 150 after Hijrah. And is mentioned here? Yes. So, and he died in Baghdad. He was born in Kufa, yani Iraq, and he died in Baghdad. Baghdad. That's where he passed away. Imam Malik says his name was Malik bin Anas al-Asbahi, but you don't have to memorize the Asbahi. He was born in Medina 93 years after Hijrah, and he died what year? 179 after Hijrah. And of course, he was the Imam of Medina, and he died in Medina. Okay? Imam Shafi'i, Muhammad bin Idris al-Shafi'i. He died in the year 204 after Hijrah. And he was born here in Gaza, in Palestine. طيب. Does it mention where he died? He died in Misr. He died in Egypt. And if you study Usul al-Fiqh, he's known to be the father of Usul al-Fiqh, but he's the one that compiled that science into a book form. You'll notice, and this is if you ever study Usul al-Fiqh, you get deep in Usul al-Fiqh, inshallah ta'ala, you'll know that Imam Shafi'i had two madhahib. He had madhaban. He had views, and this is referred to as madhabuhu al-qadim, his old views, and then he had madhabuhu al-jadid, his newer views. When they say madhab al-qadim and madhab al-jadid, when they say al-jadid, they mean his madhab when he went to Egypt. All right, because he went to Egypt, and there's certain issues where he changed his view, right? And this is another thing. Mankind, we change our view sometimes, right? We may have a position on X mas'ala at one point of our lives, but after learning and becoming, learning more knowledge and becoming, older, etc., have more wisdom, we decide to change our views, right? So Imam Shafi'i, towards the end of his life, when he went to Misr, Egypt, he changed his views on different masail, different issues, okay? And the madhab al-qadim was when he was in Kufa, all right? And this is one of the reasons why Imam Malik, rahimahullah ta'ala, he said that كل قول مقبول أو مردود إلا صاحب هذا القبر. Imam Malik, he said that every statement is accepted or rejected except for the statement of the companion of this grave. And then he pointed, ashara ila qabr an-nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He pointed to the grave of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Right? Why? Because ma yantiqu anil hawa. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam did not speak based on his desires. It was only revelation yuha. It was only revelation that was revealed to him. Right? So for this reason, it's very important to follow the Kitab al-Sunnah to the best of your ability. Then we have Imam Ahmad rahimahullah ta'ala, whose name was Ahmad bin Muhammad. Or let's skip his father, let's put his grandfather, Hanbal, Ahmad bin Hanbal al-Shaybani. But you don't have to memorize Shaybani. He died in the year 241 after Hijrah. He was born in Baghdad, and he died in Baghdad as well. Okay? And this is something very famous, right? Ahmed bin Hanbal. Many times, if a person's grandfather is more famous or known than their father, then the person will be given the name of their grandfather, right? Like Ibn Uthaymin, rahimahullah ta'ala. Ibn Uthaymin, Shaykh Ibn Uthaymin, his father was Salih. His name is Muhammad bin Salih bin al-Uthaymin. Okay, but why do we say Ibn Uthaymin? Because Uthaymin was a scholar, and he was more known, he was more famous than his son Salih. So therefore, we attribute Muhammad bin Salih to Al-Uthaymin. Okay, this is something that's done a lot, done all the time. Even Ibn Taymiyyah, rahimahullah ta'ala, right? Taymiyyah wasn't Ahmed Nuruddin, his father, right? طيب. And that's why we say Ahmed bin Hanbal. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. Any questions? That's today's lesson. Inshallah ta'ala. If there's any questions, we'll take it now. Please forgive me, we went over 20 minutes pertaining to our lesson. So we ask everyone's forgiveness regarding that. Okay, let's see. All right. By the way, I'm only going to ask a question pertaining to the content which we spoke about. Malik bin Anas was born in Medina, and he died in Medina. He was a scholar in Medina. He's known as the scholar in Medina. Okay, Imam al-Hijratain is another laqab applied to him, and he's different from Anas bin Malik. Right? If you switch the names, if you say Anas bin Malik and Malik bin Anas, what's the difference? Who's Anas bin Malik? He's a companion, radiallahu ta'ala anhu, right? He's a companion. And Malik bin Anas was a tabi'i. Also, one thing I want to point out as well, I forgot to mention, that, so you see here we have Malik bin Anas and Imam Shafi'i. Imam Shafi'i was a student of Imam Malik. Okay? And Ahmad bin Hanbal was a student of Imam Shafi'i. Okay? And it's said, well, Allah knows best, that Imam Malik was a student of Imam Abu Hanifa. Okay, so if that statement is true regarding Malik being a student of Abu Hanifa, and Allah knows best, then we say that they all were students of one another. They all were students of one another. Okay, other questions? Yes, somebody just mentioned here. Weren't these Imam students of each other? Good. Regarding old madhab Imam Shafi'i. Okay. Person asks, can we pick a madhab? You can pick a madhab if you like, but you have to study it, right? And usually what's best for a person is to learn the madhab of the majority of people in their land, okay? Because if you decide to pick a different madhab than what's being taught in your locality or, people around you, then there may come across many different, differences and arguments, okay? So what's best is that a person learns the madhab of their people and then get to a point where they're able to, distinguish, like we just said, a ta'liq, the first marhala, the first stage, then learn the second stage, then learn the third stage where you learn differences of opinions. If you take that method, inshallah ta'ala, you'll be able to distinguish what is right and what is wrong. Of course, all this is done with a sheikh, with a student or a sheikh, who can teach you and show you the way. I will send the class notes, inshallah ta'ala. Jazakumullahu khairah. Example from mubah, like for example, eating or drinking or what else? Anything really, walking. What are the names of two madhabs of Imam Ahmad? Allahu a'lam. Allah is the best. Can we access these lessons after the classes with notes? Yes, inshallah ta'ala. I'll send a link where the notes can be accessed from. Okay. Yeah, as we mentioned, somebody asked why only 4 imam. As we mentioned, there are many other madhahib, right? Al-Layth in Misr, right? Awza'i in Sham, and other imma. However, due to their madhahib being preserved, or lack of their madhahib being preserved by their students, okay, they didn't have a lot of students who preserved the masail that they taught. Their madhahib was not preserved, as opposed to Imam Ahmad, Imam Shafi'i, Imam Malik, Imam Abu Hanifa. They had a lot of students, and as a result, they preserved their knowledge. And this shows us, subhanAllah, one of the ways of preserving a scholar's legacy is via his students. His students are the ones that are going to relay that information they were taught to others. And this is a form of preserving a scholar's legacy. We already discussed this part. You don't need to follow madhab. We discussed that in the beginning of class. We said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent down the Quran and Sunnah. And this is what's obligatory to follow. However, the imams came before us, came after the companions, came after the tabi'een, etc. And they compile issues to help us in understanding the Quran with Sunnah. Okay, we don't have the ability to open the Quran and derive rulings straight from the Quran. We don't have the tools. Okay, unlike the Sahaba, who had the pure Arabic language. Us, we can only understand basic Arabic. So the madhahib were made by scholars for people like us who don't have the ability to derive straight from the Quran and Sunnah, who don't know usul al fiqh, who don't have, knowledge of hadith, so that we can worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a way that's pleasing to Him. All right? But as we also mentioned, that in some madhahib, of course, it's made by men, so there's going to be mistakes, there's going to be errors. Therefore, a person cannot have ta'assub, cannot be only take the masail and madhab, and even if it's opposing to the Quran wa Sunnah. In that case, you have to follow the Quran wa Sunnah, even if it opposes your madhab. All right? Here in the West, it's based on masjid. So how do we choose? Allahu a'lam. Allahu a'lam. You should find a place where, you have to learn at the end of the day. So just, if you could find a place where you could learn one madhab, if you could find anything where you could learn one madhab, then stick with that. Okay? And you can go through each bab, you go through each kitab, stick with that and learn that. And Allah knows best. We mentioned this already. Someone asked, mubah eating. If we do for the sake of Allah, it's an act of worship. Does it still fall into mubah? Yes, we mentioned this. Eating by itself with no intention is mubah. But you can change that into reward. How? By intending to eat so that you can worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yes, Imam Ahmed was a student of Imam Shafi'i, correct. And Imam Shafi'i was a student of Malik. And Imam Malik, it's said that he was a student of Imam Abu Hanifa. Allah knows best. Someone asked, why do many people say source is only Quran and Sunnah and understanding of the Salaf? Because it is. Every madhab, right? Like we said, every madhab, Imam Abu Hanifa, etc. These madhab that were developed after their death, while they were giving the fatwa, they were giving fatwa based on what they knew of Al-Quran wa Sunnah wa Fahm Sahaba. Okay? They didn't give a fatwa trying to oppose those three things. Okay? But due to their circumstances, them not having certain ahadith, them not being exposed to certain companions, etc., or tabi'in or tabi'in, they gave fatwa based on what they had. And sometimes what they had was incorrect. Okay? So even them, these imams followed that ideology. Quran, Sunnah, understanding the companions. It's not even understanding the companions. It's rather the ijma', the consensus of the companions. Because not all the companions were scholars. Right? So if a companion had a weird position, doesn't mean, this companion believed in it, so we got to believe in it. Rather, we believe in what the ijma', the consensus, what all the companions agreed on, what the ulama, the companions agreed on. Those learned men agreed upon. Okay, and not just any sahabi. Because the sahaba, may Allah be pleased with them all, they're on different levels in terms of knowledge. Not all of them were ulama. Right? So much so that the tabi'i, Sa'id bin Musayyib, he was a tabi'i, right? He came after the death of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He met the Sahaba, and he would teach in the masjid. And in his circle of knowledge were some Sahaba. SubhanAllah. So the Sahaba, they would learn knowledge from Sa'id ibn Musayyib due to his knowledge. Okay? Because not all Sahaba were knowledgeable. Not all of them were ulama, scholars. Okay? Because what is the condition of being a Sahabi? You must have met the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, believed in him, and died upon that belief. Some of them met him maybe only one time, and that's it, and they believed him and they died upon that. But they didn't, maybe they were busy with work, etc., earning a living, etc. They didn't have time to learn everything about the religion. All right? Understand that? You understand that, Sajah? Okay, someone asked, there's some who teach based on Salafi manhaj. Is this different from madhab? Like we said, in the time of Imam Ahmed, first of all, what does Salafi mean? Salafi means trying to follow the Salaf, their understanding. So in the time of Imam Ahmed, he was considered to be Salafi. Why? Because he followed the opinions and he tried to follow the opinion of those who came before him. He was following the opinions of the companions, what was available to him at that time. Likewise, Imam Shafi'i, he was Salafi. How? He was trying to follow the methodology of those who came before him. Likewise, Imam Malik, likewise, Abu Hanifa, rahimahumullah ta'ala. May Allah have mercy on all of them. All of them were Salafi. How? Because they followed those that came before them. Right? None of them tried to follow their desires. Okay? Or tried to oppose Islam. Rather, they tried to follow Islam to the best of their ability based on what was available to them. Okay? The pious predecessors. Does this course cover all over chapters of fiqh? Okay, so inshallah ta'ala, our intent is to go over all the masail pertaining to the Hanbali madhab. However, in order to make it easier for students, we decided to break it down into courses. So we have a course for tahara, we have a course for salah, we have a course for zakah, we have a course for hajj, we have a course for fasting, we have a course for buyur, business transactions, we have a course for marriage, for divorce, etc., etc., etc. Okay, so we're going to break it down like that, so that's easier to digest and to follow along. But if we were to have this one long ongoing course, perhaps, some people may feel, lazy, or maybe may not want to make that long-term commitment, or etc. So we decided to break down portions and have breaks in between and make it easier for everyone to follow along. Wallahu a'lam. All right. Any other questions, inshallah ta'ala, we'll take it. You can share the question or ask the question in the group and we'll answer whenever we get a chance. Make sure the questions are based on the content that we teach. Jazakumullahu khairah. We ask Allah for success. We ask Allah to forgive us for any mistakes that we've made. Anything that was correct, then it's only from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And anything that was incorrect, then it's only from my ignorance and from the whispers of shaitan. Subhanakallahumma ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.